there's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of these types of respawn systems. We're going to be trying a different implementation than the ones currently out. With our current system, it's also making leadership more valuable. Fireteam leads will have a play in how the spawn system works, is what I will say.
This video is part 2 of my interview with Ryan Yuan, the creative director of the upcoming Milsim game Bellum, who is also known as KARMAKUT. The link to part 1 is in the description. Make sure to check that out if you haven't already. In this video, there are chapters for those of you who want to see what topics were covered and want to jump around to what interests you the most. However, I do encourage you to watch the whole thing because the conversation revealed so much about what to expect from Bellum. I hope you guys enjoy. So, kind of switching gears a little bit. You've got some big name partnerships for this game. And if I understand correctly, your partner Wendigoon is helping to build out the lore and setting of Bellum. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is very cool to me. But I'm wondering if there's anything you can reveal about the story and the setting of the game, how it might manifest within the gameplay.
Sure. So honestly, as you can tell from like a lot of the discussion, it's our number one priority is the gameplay experience over narration or over the storyline. The work that is being done on the storyline is important, but it is not like, we're not a single player campaign game. Mm-hmm. We don't even have like tasks or interaction with the story like to the degree that Tarkov does or Grey Zone Warfare, right? Because there's still a story there, even though it's all text, and it's a interesting part of that experience. The story mainly does a couple things for our game specifically outside of like narrative campaign aspects. It allows us to, on the design side, tie some things together. It gives us ideas on what factions to implement. It gives us a core location to focus around. So it is a tool for us as much as it is flair for everyone else. Mm-hmm. In order to keep our scope not aligned, what's the word I'm looking for, in order to keep our scope in check, right? Like every game needs boundaries, and one of my good friends, Mikey from Insurgency or New World, had a cool saying that I always think about, which is it's just that our boundaries in this specific game are realism. Yeah. And so having a story that helps set those boundaries as well can keep things in scope, because otherwise, like, it's super easy to go, well, what if we go all the way over here and we do all this cool, crazy? There's so much stuff we want to do. There's so many cool things that we can introduce. There's so many different regions of the world. There's different conflicts and factions, and even in this particular area, there's so many different foreign soft or even just foreign countries, militaries involved, mm-hmm. that you can do a whole bunch. So having a story helps us just on the design side keep things in scope as much as it does let players experience or get a feeling of a greater cohesive element behind the entire game, rather than fighting over random location. You'd probably see a lot more of the environmental storytelling that you see present in games like Ready or Not, where that game doesn't have, it has some voice lines, I guess, but it doesn't have like a cohesive full single player campaign experience. But you have an understanding because someone put in the work, very very meaningful work to try to tie everything together, and the game just feels more believable. The environments feel more believable because of that. You feel more engaged with the level and with the scenario at hand than you do if it's just faction A, faction B, pick a random location, go fight. So that's the whole idea. It opens up more possibilities down the line for more experience, for more interesting interactions with the story, whether it be media on our side, cool things we can do to kind of share the story behind it. But it's very much a glue, and it acts as, it'll be there in the background. It'll be meaningful in the background. It'll be things that tie certain locations or certain things together. But at this stage, that's the base level of where the story is at, and that's the base reasoning behind having someone work on narration is for all that glue.
That's super cool. I was recently introduced to Ready or Not by Cog. It was with Gooms, and I was a huge fan of the environmental storytelling in that game, because you go in and you have an objective, kill all the bad guys, but then you're like looking around the level and you're like, oh, this is what happened here. This is why I'm here. It's a really cool thing that they did. So it's very interesting to hear you talk about that. All
Yeah,
right.
it's just more flavor, and I think like in games where the vast majority of your time, on like fortunately or unfortunately, depending how you're looking at it, is going to be walking through the map. Of course, we're gonna do what we can to make that as interesting as possible, which is that's a whole nother topic. But if you think about Tarkov, right? When you think about Tarkov, a lot of your time is spent walking through the map. You're not shooting people a lot of the time in Tarkov, but because of the detail and the glue behind the story and the skill of those environmental artists and the uh, storytelling in that game as well. Just because you're walking through the map a whole bunch, like you are visually engaged, your brain is continually thinking and active because like, oh, that's super cool. Oh, I wonder what happened here. Oh, maybe this is related to that. It's that's a super small. When people ask how much of a walking simulator will it be, that's a tool that a lot of people don't think about as far as like how we counter that is making the environments interesting and have enough depth that your brain is still active. Because yeah, these games aren't shoot 'em up, bang bang, arcade run and gun games. Like there will be maneuver time. Our goal is to make that maneuver time as interesting and as painless as humanly possible for the player. But there will be maneuver time. Like, this is a core
That's
part of
just
the
how it is.
experience. Yeah, it's just how it is.
I was playing on KC Liberation, and there was somebody complaining about how it was a walking simulator. And there was somebody his name is Airborne Angelo. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I know everyone.
He goes, "That's what war is," and just left it at
Yeah,
that. All right.
yeah.
Going back to kind of like the top level gameplay design. So I noticed that occupation game mode, there are two things that were interesting to me about it in terms of the spawn system. So first, you guys mentioned manpower as a resource. It reminded me a lot of the shirt system in Foxhole. But also each faction has a limit to the number of spawn points that factions can construct. So like the conventional faction, they get one cop, if I remember correctly. I don't remember if there was a limit to the guerrillas. So
Guerrillas are at 3. They get 3 hideouts currently.
Get 3 hideouts. Okay. So we've already kind of talked about this a lot through our various meandering conversations, but would you be able to kind of focus down specifically on the spawn system, what the dev team's thought process is on putting that together, on the spawn resource gameplay, and what the end effect that you're hoping to achieve is?
Sure. So, all right, let me organize how I want to answer this in my head. So, we are definitely aware of the issues that are present within the genre. So whether that's even KC Lib or Cog4 on our servers, or it's Reforger, or it's Squad, or it's Hell Let Loose, like the one thing that I think is detrimental to a lot of these experiences that we're going to try to fix is the fragmentation of squad cohesion over time. There's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of these types of respawn systems, whether it's rallies, whether it's all the way back at the fob, whether it's a halfway point that's a cop or a bivvy or a patrol base. There's pros and cons to every implementation. We're going to be trying a different implementation than the ones currently out. It might seem familiar to some people, but it is not. It is not the same. In the niche, I don't think it's been tested before, and it's going to be. We're going to reveal that later, just because it's a pretty big system. But what I can say is about it now is that it's going to attempt to address the issues with the systems present. Those issues being squad fragmentation, the exploitation of rally points on a battlefield, right? So a lot of times what happens is
you use them as sensors.
Use them as sensors, or you can what ends up happening, I'll give you a situation. 2 squads that are using a rally point respawn system end up fighting one another in an engagement over whatever piece of terrain. Doesn't really matter. Over time, what ends up happening is, depending on how that system is set up, if it's an unlimited amount, then that fight becomes stagnant, right? The line gets drawn, and it's very hard to, unless you have some god FPS players, or like some miracle, like you end up just getting stuck, right? There's no incentive to really maneuver unless one team takes the initiative and does so to win. Otherwise, you have this ever ever flowing respawn of onesies and twosies coming off the rally over a certain position. You see this a lot on objectives, right? You see it on a lot of objectives where rallies will get set up outside the objective, and it just becomes a meat grinder, right? You just sit there, and eventually someone will make a mistake, or someone will gain the advantage, and then they'll finish the fight. But there's not that much maneuvering with that system. Just because of how entrenched that gets. Another is like maintaining a rally is just annoying. It just feels like another one of those things that squad leaders just dislike doing. Like, I have to run all the way back here, pick up the thing, come back here. If it gets crushed or whatever, then I'm out of the rally, and it's just like the whole system just seems a little bit clunky. It's good for what it is, and I think like 10 years ago when it was introduced, like I think it made sense back then. I just think it's been enough time that we've recognized the issue with the system, and it's the problem with like the fob system, or the main base spawn system, is like the pros of that are you have a more value to your life because it is super inconvenient to go all the way back here. But God, does that absolutely decimate any kind of squad cohesion.
It really
so like
does.
in Reforger, like that's why in Reforger you never see any like squads actually operating as like a squad in like a public match or on a public server, is because there's like no way to do that. Once you go out there and like a couple of your guys die and they get sent back to main, you'll see those guys in 30 minutes, dude. You see those guys, sometimes they just hop off because like coming back to play with the group is just like, it is such a journey. And so like, if that's the experience you want to make, more power to you. But like for us, we want teamwork, right? That's the core driver of like a lot of the systems, is teamwork and cohesion. And so we want to make sure that the team stays cohesive. And one of the things that with the rally points you truly never really see is the whole ability to like fall back. There's no reason to fall back because you have that anchor of the rally in the on the map. The fact that excuse me, breaking contact is like a key task. It's like a key thing you should know. And it's like a part of the Milsim experience that is missing. And that goes back to another one of those things where like one of our things that we want to do is we want to fulfill as many. This just sounds like a super weird sentence to say, but we want to fulfill as many military gamer fantasies as possible, right? So there's a whole bunch of things like when you play these games, like, oh, I want to be in a convoy, oh, I want to ambush, oh, I want to have this awesome breaking contact moment, I want to have there's a myriad of these experiences that I think players go into hoping that they'll have, and it is a shame and unfortunate that a lot of it just ends up into a solo player meat grinder experience, just because of the situations that we have. But there's like a ton of those fantasies, right? That's kind of why Arma 3 I think is so popular, is because that's the only place where you can actually like very, very easily get that experience, is because you can tailor it for yourself. Like in this experience, we're going to experience this military fantasy. Like that's that whole, not that whole, but that is like a major strength of Arma 3, is that you can get those that, those experiences are not available anywhere else. And so we want to make those authentic to our game mode and our experience. And the spawn system is a core part of that, and just making it so that it's flexible, but it's not constricting. It has enough squad cohesion that isn't exploitable, i.e. like we go all the way around the map, and now we're just infinitely spawning over here in a back line behind people, or we're like, what you'll see with rally sometimes is like everyone gives up, and then we move the rally, you drop it, a whole squad spawns in out of nowhere. We're going to do our best to avoid the exploitation of these gamified things as much as humanly possible. There still are going to be gamified things just because it is a video game.
Right.
But yeah, keep the squad together is the goal. Keep the squad together. Make sure it's not exploitable. And with our current system, it's also making leadership more valuable, right? So that's fire team leads will have a play in how the spawn system works, is what I will say. It's not just the squad leader. So that's something we can say. Those are the goals. Okay. We'll have a post on it coming up. I mean, you'll probably see it soon here. That's something we're going to be showcasing rather soon, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. Yeah. A little bit of a teaser on what's coming up. All right. Let's go into logistics. So like logistics, obviously going to be central to occupation, But I feel like in a lot of the other shooters in the space, you get like, the occasional person who's like all about the logistics. They're happy to be driving that truck for 2 hours and they're chilling. But in a lot of cases, it kind of turns into a chore that's like super necessary and important, but nobody wants to do it. And sometimes you'll get somebody who's like, all right, I'll do what's right for the team, and they do it, but grudgingly. Other times nobody does it, and then the team suffers and gets destroyed as a result. Are there any concerns that the logistics in Bellum might take away from the experience by becoming a chore? And how is that something you guys are thinking of measures to mitigate?
Sure. Okay. No, this is a good question. I like this question. All right. So, the reason why logistics is annoying in other games is because you have so many points you have to supply that all must be supplied that are important. And you have an infinite amount of ways to get there. And almost because you have that infinite possibility, your brain just kind of tunes out and you just drive the shortest possible, route. So there's not that much value put on logistics, because it doesn't affect spawns for the most part in a lot of games. Like Hell Let Loose, you can always spawn on the thing. Squad, you can always spawn on the fob. What we're doing is we're making it so that you have to supply the fob for spawning, or the cop for spawning. And if that cop runs out of supplies on it, the manpower on it to respawn, then you're just out. And here's the thing, right? This kind of goes back to the whole philosophy of turning the life count down. You have one fob on the map, or one cop on the map. You have one cop on the map. That one cop, if it gets overrun or it's out of supplies or whatever, everyone notices, right? Like, it is valuable to the entire team. It's not one of the 15 other spawn points that your team has. It is the one that your team is using in the position. So whoever's doing that logistical run to the cop will feel important, because it is important and it is recognized by everyone, rather than like, I gotta drive all the way out here to this random thing and just fill it up, and like no one really cares about me, and it's just annoying. Like, some people, like you said, do it out of their good of their heart, and like, we love those people, we cherish those people. Those people are kings. Like, yes, but it would be great if like that logistics run was much more impactful, much more important, because when it's going to that one position in the cop, in the AO, what that means is that everyone's focus is on that supply route, right? It's not the supply route from the fob to 1,000 other cops or objectives. It's the supply route from the fob to the cop. And that is the one line that's important. So we shrink the amount of options down to a manageable amount. Because if I'm on Op4, right, and I'm like, hey, do I want to look for enemy logistics? Well, they have so many fobs up or cops up. I don't want to bother. The map is so big, they can take an infinite amount of routes. You can do whatever you want as a logistics guy. Go ahead on the other team, right? That's like the mentality in a lot of these games, unless you're like main base camping. But if it's just one, if it's just one from the fob to the cop, and that's the one line, then I can focus. I can take the time in this and analyze this with the actual care that is needed if I want to deny the logistics. And to me, those logistics are important to deny, because if I can deny the logistics from the fob to the cop, I can kick them out of the zone. So we shrink down the possibilities or the tasks at hand, so that it's not overwhelming to like the singular logi run from that one position to the next position. And so what that means is it is now more likely, this was possible in dynamic direction. This is why this gets me so hyped. Yeah. It's because we saw it in action. It's been tested. It's been proven. It functions like this, right? When you have the one base and you have the one cop, that supply route becomes so important to both players. And what does that mean? Just like with the lives, it means you're going to do whatever you can to destroy that thing while keeping your guys alive, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to try... Okay, I'm going to back up. I'm going a little too fast. Okay. I'm gonna use like an anecdote first. So just because this was super interesting to watch, and this kind of explains the system and the depth to a degree that I think is super enlightening. Okay. So at the start of Dynamic Directions Inception with the game mode occupation there, what you started seeing in the very beginnings was the typical squad meta. You saw like, oh, I'm just a Logi driver. I'm gonna solo drive my Logi to the one fob in the AO, right? Like, and so that was how it does, how it's run usually, right? It's a single dude running a single Logi to the thing because it's a boring freaking job. Well, just because of the fact that there was one fob on the map for the blue 4 players, it meant that that fob was much more hot. There were OPT4 walking around it all the time. There were people setting up adjacent to it. It became difficult for that one Logi to just, sneak into the one base because it's so hot. There's so much activity there. So what you ended up seeing is like, okay, Insurgents or the OPT4 recognize this and we're like, hey, we're set up around here. Like, it's so easy for us to set up, these small ambushes to kill the Logi, starve them out. At least they can't build, right? We weren't able to shut off spawns. We never go around to shutting off spawns in the mod. But they recognize, hey, we can starve out the build points, and that in and of itself, and ammunition, which is kind of a sub factor of that. Yeah. So it was still important to do it, but it was not as important as like, hey, we can just completely siege this thing. And so what you ended up happening naturally as a counter was like, okay, you know what? The Logi is so important, and the team recognizes this because it's 1 point. It's one like everyone can see that number go down. It's like, where's the supplies? that you start getting this sense of like, okay, the team as itself, we need to do this one thing, and that's like keep the experience focused as far as like what is the thing that the team needs to do, and focus it here. But in certain games, it's like, oh, you have to defend the spawn points, you have to defend the objective, you have to attack the objective, you have to do all these certain things. But let's like right here, let's focus on the priority at hand. The priority at hand is we need to stay in the AO. We need the supplies. So what you started seeing, which I'd never seen ever before in Squad, which was absolutely stunning to me, was you started to see organic convoys forming, right?
Yeah,
an organic convoy, because it's like, holy crap, these supplies, and it makes sense logically, and this goes to like the whole gameplay design. We need these supplies to the base. The whole team recognizes it. How do we do that as a team? Well, let's protect the freaking supplies coming in, right? So you started seeing convoys form, like Humvee at the front, Humvee at the back. Like, you want to think about the routes, right, that they're taking in. And then OPT4 as a counter, because the situation, like, and this just goes into how the meta develops. They're like, oh, shoot. They're actually, I can't just kill the Logi driver with a one guy with a rifle anymore because they're convoying it with a group. I actually now need to set dedicated ambushes or have squads set up in positions to ambush so that we can actually kill the thing. I can't just one man, me duke it out with the Logi driver that's coming down the road anymore because it's protected. So you actually started seeing ambushes, which is, once again, you rarely see that in any of these games happen. A dedicated ambush, like, that is another military gamer fantasy that we want to fulfill, right? And so that goes to like that whole goal of like making sure that we can fulfill as many of these fantasies as possible and create an environment where it's not, hey guys, this is an ambush game mode. You're gonna sit here and we're gonna drive the vehicles into you, and you're gonna like, that's like, what the like, okay, like, yes, you can do that, sure, and that's like the Arma way of doing things most of the time. But it feels so much more rewarding. It feels so much more dynamic and interesting when it's like, we as a team, we just figured this out together and we all agreed it was the right thing to do, and we did it because we wanted to win. And so that was crazy, because then you saw those ambushes happening, and then like the Logi drivers are like, you know what? We can't use the same route anymore like we always do in Squad, where we just run in and out of the same route because no one freaking cares about us. So now you have like actual IRL, and this goes to the IRL point of like, when you have things that matter, people will go into the depth that it takes. When you have IRL things that matter and they're required to win, people will go into the steps that it takes, that mirrors real world strategies, to where like, okay, we're taking this route in, we're taking this route out. The next time we run, we're doing this route and taking that route out, because we don't want to lose the Logi, because it means we lose the game, and everybody recognizes that. Sorry, I'm getting very excited about this point, but this was like a super eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah.
This is a core memory because this showed me what was possible. This showed me it was possible to do things like this. And that's when like, I think that was honestly probably one of the moments that made me think like, I want to capture this and like package it in a way that is purpose built for this experience and experiences like it. Like that realization was super critical, just on the logistics side, because being able to make something as mundane as logistics realistic and authentic in a way that was exciting to players and meaningful to players, and everyone recognized it instantly, that was like a core moment. So yeah, that kind of also describes how logistics will work in Bellum, where you have the fob and the cop, and you're running the supplies to and from, and everyone recognizes it's important, and because of that, metas will develop in order to get the supplies into the cop.
All right, now you're getting me all hyped up for this. One of my biggest regrets is I never got to play dynamic direction, because by the time I found out about it, it was already dead. I actually first heard about it when it was the big news that the mod was getting discontinued. And retroactively, I was like watching the video about the game mode and all the stuff, and I was like, damn, this looks so cool. But Bellum it is now. That is where the future lies. Okay. All right. So now you talked about ambushes, supply line interdiction. Big problem in games like Squad is main base camping. Now the community is always arguing about this, because people, like most people, recognize that main base camping to some extent is like a bad thing that's not part of intended gameplay design. But then you have other people who kind of see the potential in supply line interdiction gameplay, but they lump main base camping under that, right? And they see it as legitimate. For you, where is that line between legitimate supply interdiction and illegitimate, bad for the game camping? And how are you going to mitigate that? And we did briefly talk about this in the Discord, but I'm still asking you this for the interview.
Sure. So like, I think that can be handled, and this goes like, if I had a quarter every time I said this goes back, I'd have a lot of quarters at this point. But our thought process here is like elegant solutions, right? So you can always do the first order like punishment or gameplay change, right? Like ICO, where it's like shooting's too easy, let's just make shooting harder, right? Or you can always do the heavy-handed first level thinking thing to adjust things. But like, I'd rather fix a lot of these problems via design at the higher level, or incentives at different levels that prevent it from happening, or make it so inconvenient, or so or make it detrimental enough that it disincentivizes most people from doing it. So one of the things is that the map is going to be, quite large, and the playable area is also quite large as well. You also, going back to the information thing, and you can see how like everything's tied together, like you won't know where the Op4 main base is. You just won't. So the question then becomes like, all right, with how big the map is, like, yes, our spawn location is on this side of the map. Do I really want to spend all my time like fucking around in the jungle, like looking for this thing and then finding it and then finding a spot, and then I could just possibly die and then just go all the way back to start, right? Like, could I like is that something that I want to do? So hiding the information of where the Op4 main base is goes a long way. And then also just how we've developed the map and the game mode, just the fact that it's a circle and it's not linear means that we can place it 360 degrees around. So like that kind of eats into the map and level design a little bit, with how we've planned things to not be a linear, like one side starts here, the other starts here. It's try to be as open as possible so we can have a rotating spawn system. But yeah, that's part of it, is handling it that way. The other part of it is like, there should be to some degree interdiction happening far out. Like, I'm okay with that because it keeps Logi drivers awake, right? It makes that gameplay loop interesting. The main thing is that we don't, I should say our goal is to not have people getting killed like 5 minutes out of spawn at the main base fob.
Yeah.
That is a goal. But like after that, like freaking heads on a swivel, wake up kind of thing, right? Because that's kind of what wakes you up and like, all right, pay attention, because they could be here. You don't know that they're here, but they could be. But yeah, we'll make sure whatever it is that we do, we already have some protections in place to prevent it. But you shouldn't be getting killed like, we just left main base, what the heck is going on here, kind of thing happening. But like, as you get closer, you should be waking up, you should be paying attention, because that's in part what keeps the walking simulator part of the game alive, is the tension. Whole tension. Tarkov, that's why you're wired in Tarkov all the time, is the tension. Is that you don't know what the heck is around that corner, you don't know where everyone is, so you're creeping around, you're paying attention, you're locked in. That's kind of the experience we want to have, and that once again ties into the lives, ties into information, ties into visibility of the map, ties into the starting positions, the randomness of it all, the objective at hand. It all ties together to create that experience, and so that's an important part though, is making sure that things are possible, but none of the feels bad should be happening. You should not be getting towed or tanked right out of the base by I remember that happening all the time. Like, okay, I guess we're getting main camp by the tow out there. Or I guess there's a tank just watching the one way out of the base, and like it's just so it's keeping in mind all those things as we tie everything together. But we should have all the feels bad removed. And that's another thing though, right? Is because players are making their objectives in the map, right? They're putting down their cops or their hideouts. Like, you get to pick your insertion point, right? It's not like, okay, there's a set place that both teams need to go to, right? At the end of the day, there's like a 200-meter circle that like we're all going to be battling out in, and we can see the line of flags that it takes to get there. So like I can read before, like, okay, if I want to stop them from getting to this flag, I'm going to rush at this point here, right? Or hey, we're going to first cap rush, right? Because that's a meta too, because you can, because you know they're going to go there, right? But if you don't know where they're going to go, like, you don't know where they're going to go, and it's just that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities for the Blue 4 team to go, where are we putting this base? Are we putting it here? Maybe this place has an obvious supply route, right? And it's super easy for us to get supplies. But what if they recognize that too? What if they recognize that, oh my God, this is way too obvious. Now we're going to get like rushed, or we're going to get ambushed coming into this spot, right? So it's like all these levels of thinking that are now possible. But also it just gives players the ability to avoid main camping, come in on the other side of the circle, come in on the other side of the map, flank around, take a long route, take the obvious position, take the risky position, whatever they want to do. They can do it now, and they have the tools, and they're not restricted to a game mode that is telling them to do otherwise.
Yeah. All right. Super cool. Okay. Let's switch gears to the medical system briefly. So you've kind of given us some details about the tools that the players are going to have at their disposal. They're like bandages, tourniquets, blood bags, drugs. And you've shared that you're going to start the player base out with an introductory medical system that you hope to make more complex as the player base develops. So let's say we have like the classic battlefield defibrillator on one end, and then like full on Arma 3 advanced combat medical with all the doodads turned on the other. On this spectrum, like, where's your aim point for the start? Where would you like to push it to? And that second question, I'm going to do multi-part it. Like, all my questions have been multi-parted, but like, if you were dreaming, how far would you want to push it? And if the player base is just like, no, we hate saving lives in our gameplay, we just want to kill stuff, what's like the minimum you'd want to eventually achieve?
Sure. So I'll start with our goals for our medical system first, so that we can have like a foundation. So the goals of our medical system currently were to, number one, make it so that medical was interesting. A lot of people, when they play medics, like Squad and Hell Let Loose, do a decent job of like, for once again, 10 years ago, literally fresh genre, right? These guys spearheaded the genre to a degree. Like it was perfect for the time, right? People were just starting. Tarkov hadn't exploded, right? Like Armor Forger wasn't around. They spearheaded it, and credit to them for spearheading it. But 10 years later, I think the community, like, it's just natural. Humans are ready for growth. We're ready for more depth. And just after so many hours, right, like coming in and just like right click, left click, right click, left click, right click, left click. Like, if you want people to be engaged, like, I think you do have to make the experience engaging. That sounds super obvious, but that's kind of the reasons. Like, yeah, medic's like cool and it's important, but like, God, it's like not done as interestingly as it could be. The flip side of that, though, one of our goals was to not make it too prohibitive, right? Because we understand that while a lot of us are super hardcore Milsim fans on the team, and we play like Ace Medical, and we play like with all this crazy stuff, and like, people are doing drug calculations and got to figure out which IV to put in, and like all this, like, oh my God, all this stuff in COG and whatnot, that even me, like, even though I play COG, right, I have no idea what the medics are doing in COG at the time. I say, hey, I'm hit, like, yeah, chest seal, tourniquet, like, figure out some basic stuff. But you need to look at me. Like, I don't know what's going on. So I totally understand. Like, I have firsthand knowledge that medical can get way too far outside of the depths of what the majority of people are prepared to do. So we definitely want to make sure that it's simple enough, but engaging. And so the baseline that we have right now is we have what you would typically have as like an infantryman, and we think that's number one relevant because it's cool. It's cool that you can do things that you would do IRL if you got shot, right? That it's just, you know, this kind of harkens back to America's Army and like how they did their medical teachings and how they tried to do their systems around the real world. So, and there was a lot of interest about that. Like, oh, I think there's an article like I saved this guy's life because I learned how to use a tourniquet in America's Army or something like that. Like it's cool. It's teaching, and that is part of this game. It's the instruction of information to the player base at the very base level. Just teaching people. I think people enjoy learning. I think people enjoy being challenged, and there's a certain amount of gratification that comes when you master a system or when you understand the complexity of a system and can perform better than other people, right? That skill curve, like that stuff's important. So I'm sorry, I got distracted again, but the core features that we have is tourniquets and bandages for bleeding, right? That's just super basic stuff. We have chest seals, or we will have chest seals by the time it comes around. That's like, honestly, it's just a cosmetic thing that changes it from a bandage on your chest to a chest seal on your chest. And then we have blood, obviously, just to get blood back, just because, you know, Rangers and the Rolo system, that they spearheaded that, and that's like a super cool thing to highlight and showcase, is the fact that, you know, blood transfusions in the field happen. Of course, it doesn't happen like in the game where like, oh, I'm going to stick you with this needle and you're good to go in 2 minutes kind of thing. But it's, you know, it's an extrapolation and an example of like cool things that do authentically happen. And then also we have like certain drugs just for mainly gameplay, but like it's somewhat believable, especially to manage different states, because you have incapacitation, bleeding, normal, and unconscious. And so like to manage those states a little bit, we have some drugs that when used correctly can help your team perform, but are not prohibitively difficult to master. It's pretty gamified for that reason.
Sure.
But yeah, I would like to push the medical further than that. I would like to get more in depth with, you know, other different drugs, maybe perhaps, or like honestly, see, this is how I know it's too much. This is the extent of my medical. This is how I knew like this was how as far as I wanted to go. Because like after all these years of playing Milsim, like that is what stuck with me, and that is what I felt was enough after, you know, 10 years of doing it. But like, I don't know, there might be some cool suggestions for some people of like how they want to do medical as well, or how in depth they want to get. But we don't want it to detract from the experience. We appreciate everyone that has like a lot of medical interest, and is like, we've had so many people reach out. They're like, hey, I'm an EMT, I'm a medic IRL, I'm a, you know, XYZ. I'm really interested about the medical system. What I can say is like, unfortunately, it will not be a medical simulator, right? This is not a medical simulator. This is an infantry. I would say it is an infantry simulator. That is what the core of the experience is supposed to do, is have you play as an infantryman and have the experiences an infantryman should have, and have the tactical flexibility in that scope. It is not, you know, we're not going to see jets, we're not going to see tanks, at least for now, right? Maybe in years, I don't want to lock us out of that, but that is the core of the experience. Is like everything revolves around how, as a fire team, as a squad, how can we improve that experience? And we don't necessarily think that going so far into medical simulation of all different kinds of drugs, having you do freaking calculations and whatnot, adds to that experience as much as it detracts from it. So that's probably where we draw the line for a little bit. We are open to expanding it. But like two things would have to happen. Number one, we'd have to have a clear line of how far we want to push it. And there are some ideas already. So we do know, you know, to some degree, some things we can add or change. But the second is how the player base is adapting to the current system. And that will take time. Like from this current system to like whatever next push we do execute will take some time. Like we probably wouldn't do it anytime, you know, close to early access release, because people still have to learn and master that system. And there's still enough depth in those tools that players have to think about what they're doing. And like add that with like different body parts and having to manage and triage different levels of wounds that, aside from just the different types, understanding what is priority and how to handle certain things, like that, there's enough to chew on there for the short term. The next, if we were ever, I'll say something kind of disclaimer. Once again, disclaimer, 100%.
Okay.
I'm unsure if this will ever happen. I'm unsure of when it will happen. But if we ever do anything next, it will probably have to be. It'll probably have something to do with the respiratory mechanics. That would probably be the next step, logically speaking.
Yeah, it would. Very cool. All right. Now let's go to player-based culture. All right. So this one is near and dear to me because, like, you know, I have my videos on YouTube, and how it started, how it all started. The first video that I ever released that popped off was one where I'm trying to explain suppression, the concept of it, and then like tying some gameplay tips to like the machine gunner role on it. And it all started because like I was on Reddit, the Join Squad subreddit, and people were talking about suppression, and there were a lot of misconceptions, and it was kind of getting on my nerves, and I just needed to like get it out there. This is what it is. This is how it's done. And then everybody liked the video, and things kind of took off from there. So new player onboarding, you know, kind of getting people up to speed with how things are, and then the culture that gets packaged along with it. There's, you know, if you have a player-based culture that's about learning, that's about this type of mindset, it tangibly affects the gameplay experience, in my opinion, especially when it's all about teamwork and you're primarily interacting with other players. And that's been a prominent talking point with the Bellum team. Like, you guys think it's part of the developers, you know, like the developer team, the devs need to take part in that. So I don't know if you guys have like solid plans yet, but would you have any examples of ideas that you guys might have on how to help foster that culture and conduct player onboarding?
Yeah. So one of the cool things is that like a lot of people on the team have experience in milsim communities or tactical gaming communities, and a lot of them have experience teaching or sharing information. You know, whether like it's my experience training guys up from COG or KC or whatever it is, to like the squad ops group, like they ran squad ops basic training for years. Like 15,000 people have gone through the squad ops training, right, that we used to run, and that was like at least some kind of onboarder. Of course, like looking back, it was not the best for the reasons that the onboarding was specifically to squad ops events and not the game itself. But still, like we have a lot of experience like teaching people milsim or tactical shooters, or, you know, realistic tactics that work in a video game, right? That's an important caveat, is that work in a video game part is super important. But yeah, video information. We have a lot of ideas for tutorials, in-game tutorials. Like, we know how these things want to function. We know how that we want the player base to use them. We want to demonstrate it to them. We think that it's super important that the studio has a heavy hand or a very influential impact in that regard, more so than just relying on the community. Because that's something that, once again, going back to the whole winning thing, going back to the whole combined goal thing, like it's important that we do that at every level, and we demonstrate that is important to us. Like having it so that, hey, everyone can point to and see, the devs released this video on how this thing should work and some tips on how you should play and the things that you should do. And not that those are the only things that are possible, or that's the only way you can play the game, but at least there's something that you can point to that's like, this is a starting point. This is a core cultural thing that we can point to, and we can kind of use as a jumping off point for the rest of the community, and the rest of the community can do supplemental information, or you see like experimental tactics, or you see interesting tips and guides on how to do other unique things. But there should be a core culture behind, like, how do you play this game that is visible to everyone, that is not just a tutorial, because that is, you know, this whole thing is built on community and communities playing against each other and playing as a community and playing as a team and teamwork. Like, you can also see like everywhere throughout the design that glue is sprinkled in, of making sure that we have some cohesive push across all areas, to make sure that things stick together and people play as one. So yeah, the player onboarding would consist in the long term, upon completion, right, I could see us doing videos. I could see us doing like very specific tutorials, in-depth tutorials, multiple tutorials, right, optional for the majority. There's some interesting ideas regarding the optional. Like I've heard some interesting suggestions about make tutorials, have them certify you, and then let server owners toggle if they want the rules to have to be certified. There's like other ways to achieve that I think aren't as restrictive. Like just having basically what the players are saying is like we want to be able to server lock servers so that only experienced players or players who aren't new are joining. And so there's other ways we can do that other than like the whole certify and then you have to have the role to play and whatnot. But I understand the sentiment. We've heard that feedback before, and like I've also wanted that. We're like, yeah, when sales or free weekends come around, oh god, like half the people, because that doesn't exist, people just stop playing. People just stop playing. It's chaos. It's horrible. What I can say is we will have some kind of player onboarding. I will make this my mission. I will make it a goal. Like we will never have a free weekend until we have some form of tolerable new player pipeline in. If we ever have a free weekend, I don't even know if we will have free weekends. But like that is how important that. Basically, I'm just saying that is how important that is to us. Is before we introduce any mass rush of people, we have to have the pillars and foundation in place that retain the community culture before that main wave, because that just via attrition, that's how you lose that culture. And it's very apparent in a lot of places where that's happened, where you flood the game, you never create the foundation you don't have the pipeline. And if you don't have the pipeline, then that just erodes and erodes and erodes and erodes. Communities get burned out. People stop playing. Like that's just, I say that because that is my personal experience of how that stuff has gone. That's just my personal experience of, I don't think it's a secret. People dislike it when, the game that requires teamwork floods it with people who don't know how to play the game, don't use teamwork, and are never taught. And then, you end up with the really weird situations where the game is just completely different now.
Yeah. Okay. And that kind of ties into my next question, which is about community. Like community is like, it's a crucial component of Milsim. For a lot of people, it's like the center of Milsim. It's not just part of the fun, right? You make friends, but also like on some level, you need to kind of get to know the people you're playing with to be able to maximize your coordination and your teamwork and your in-game performance. So are there going to be any ways that you support communities through features in-game, or like at least facilitate consistent groups?
Sure. So, excuse me. 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So, community is super important. I know this just as a community leader, right? I've squad ops, KC, COG, all that stuff. Like I understand how important it is to have a group of people that you want to play with, that you align with, that share the same likes and dislikes as you. I totally understand that. One of the things is that we're not going to be on Steam, right? And a lot of people think like, oh, that's kind of scuffed. But what that makes us do, what that forces us to do even, right, is to create that whole social system, right? So that has to be a feature by design because we aren't using Steam. The benefit to not being on Steam is like, because we have to create our own system, and because that system needs to be robust, and because it's not on Steam and we have full control, there's a lot of flexibility and incentive for us to make that as polished of an experience with all the features that we've always wanted, because we have to make it anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So further down the line, so just at the start, it's just going to be like your standard, how you would imagine it, like being able to add people, being able to group up with people, being able to message people, etc.
Yeah.
Moving on further down the line, and this is like to like the old tactical shooter heads, this is kind of a meme, because like every game says they'll do this, but then they never do this. Like clan support.
Yeah. In-game clan patches.
Yes, every game everywhere always says in-game clan support, in-game clan patches, blah blah. We're gonna try to do it. Okay, we're gonna try to do it. We're gonna try to bring it to fruition. I know it's a meme at this point. We're gonna try to do it because it's important. It's especially for these communities who not only support your game, play your game, teach the player base, but are literally covering server costs.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is something that I think is very unique about the tactical shooter community that, is goes to speak to the depths of how dedicated players of this genre are. But like nearly all of these games are run by community servers who front the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So that is like, if you look at all the communities, that's a substantial cost that the communities are taking onto themselves to support the game and push the game. Right. It's actually super important that we recognize and we support communities because of the work that they put into the game and because of how much the game relies on them. It truly does rely on them. If I told you, if I snap my fingers tomorrow, all the communities, like maybe the player stayed, but all the communities left, like how many servers does that decimate? Right?
Yeah.
Like it shreds servers, it shreds the experience. Like that's how pillar to the experience these guys are. And so it's important that we support and recognize them. And I want to, like, that is because I've been there. I've been on both sides of that. I've been on the side where like I'm a community that it does not get support, or it's impossible to work with developers, or it's that the developers do things that don't take the community server hosts into account. I've been on the side where like hosting for these games has been a complete pain, and that's literally why AWN came into fruition, is because like we were sick and tired of like the server hosts and how certain server hosts were doing this, so we just made it ourselves and we did it. So I've been with it. We understand it intimately. I'd say more so than a lot of other people of the trials and strife of being a community server host in these games. Like we get it. We totally understand the problems there. We recognize it. We're going to do our best to keep you in mind and to keep them all in mind, just because, yeah, we've been there. We've been one of you. We want to make it. We have every feature you probably think you want. Like we probably already wanted it at some point as well. We probably dreamt about it or have like worked on it a little bit already. Yeah, we know how you feel. So we hear it. We know. And we're looking forward to hopefully implementing these things over time, because it's important. It's very important.
Cool. That is awesome to hear, honestly. And I think it kind of speaks to you and the developer team's background as, being of the community yourselves, which is one thing that really it's one thing that really convinced me from the first announcement that Bellum was something I wanted to get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot of that, a lot of the team is like actively plays. Like it's cool. It's cool to be part of a team that does that cares that much, that really loves what we're trying to do. Because yeah, it's super unique. So we're grateful to have the opportunity. We're grateful to have everyone's trust and attention. And yeah, we're doing our best. It is a fresh indie studio. We do have experienced people, like I mentioned, on the team from other projects, but all these people have, before this project, never worked together as a team before. But yeah, we're doing our best. We're super excited. We're super pumped. Things are looking good. There's going to be challenges for sure. Not everything's going to go perfect. Some of these ideas might come out and we test them, and like we have to change a pivot, and we have to fix things, and we have to balance things again. But yeah, this team really cares, and we're going to do whatever we can to deliver the best thing we can.
All right, man. As much as I could sit here and chat with you all day, I think I think I might start winding down this awesome interview. This has been great so
far. For sure.
All right, let's start the end with this one. For you personally, what's been the best part of developing Bellum, and what's the worst part been? Maybe start with the worst and end on the high note.
Okay, sure. So the hardest thing is, let me think about that one.
Take your time, dude.
So there's two. The first one is boring, so I'll get that one out of the way, and that's just the technical challenges of working with a new team and working with a new engine. UE5 is like very fresh. There's not a lot of experts on it. There's not like clear thing, and it's always in motion too. That's the pros and cons of being on the bleeding edge, is that it's moving fast. The frontier moves fast, and so There's constant updates and fixes and whatnot, but there's also cool new tech. And that kind of leads me to the second one is like every day here. I'm sorry. That's the good one. Let's go on to the second bad one first. So the yeah, that's it's the technical challenges, but like I think every project has that. This is also just my first like official project, so like it's just challenging. It's just hard.
Right.
There's just hard days. There's just moments where things are not working. There's moments when things break sometimes. Like that is just a reality of development. And it's just a little bit compounded by how new the team is and how new we are all working together. I should say. So it's that's I think just development. The other bad thing or like feels bad, I guess, is seeing how absolutely abused and traumatized the player base has become.
Okay.
Like reading all the comments and whatnot, just saying like, oh, another tactical shooter, or another failed project, another like that like it doesn't offend me or anything like that, because I get it. Like I've had that mindset. I know what you're talking. It's sad to me that is so widespread. It is unfortunate to me that is how the genre has gone for so long, that no one has, or not no one, that a lot of people have lost faith in new tactical shooter projects. Like that is so unfortunate to me. That like I just feel bad in general about like the state that the genre has become. Like I feel confident that we're going to be able to deliver. So like I sit there and I just like, okay, just wait, hang on, we'll bring it to you, right? But it is just sad seeing that like so many people are just completely burnt out. And it's just an absolute shame that like that's happened. That we haven't had, that we had that period of stagnation. We had that period of of trauma, I guess you'd say, as a community, where everyone's just like
the dark ages.
So fuck this. Yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Like it's unfortunate because we were on such a. I was there with Squad all the way up for like 8 years or whatever, right? And so like I got to see the whole thing. It was a fresh new thing. It was a brand new way of playing. It was growing. It was growing. It was growing. It had a golden age. Oh my god, explosion, player boom, so much interest, right? And then it was just like, and then we started seeing like a general decline in just the space in general. Like certain studios start getting bought or sold out, or projects started getting canceled. A whole bunch of like that. That's how I'd explain the timeline. Is we had the initial entry, we had the growth stage and the big boom, and then I think whether it was COVID related or whatever, there's a period of time where like things just started turning down. Studios started like just evaporating. Projects just started coming out that were not great and just not finished and just died. And it was just this long timeline, and now we're here and we gotta like fight against the past years of, you know, all this negative feeling, which I get because I was there, and that is literally why I'm here now.
Yeah.
It's because I was like, I'm done waiting. I'm done seeing all these projects go this way. Like I had an option, right? I could sit here and just freaking like wait for projects to come out and just maybe come to completion, probably fail and die, right? I could just wait. But from what I understood about like what projects were being worked on, like I didn't see what I want coming up from like the big names. Like that didn't seem like they were going to offer something that I really wanted. And then I had to think. I just sit and think about like, okay, well, let's think realistically. If I wanted the next person, who would I trust to make the next tactical shooter that answered all my questions, that fixed all the problems that I had with previous ones, that did not repeat problems of the past, that understood the community aspect of it all? Who would I trust? What studio would I trust? What person would I trust to make that game? Right? And the answer was no one. There was no one I trusted to make that experience, right? There was no experienced studio in the genre that was coming. We had some new entries like 6 Days and Gray Zone, but like you can see they're going through their own growing pains as well in the genre because they're new entries in the genre, and you know there's repeat problems there that they need to figure out and fix, and like that's gonna take time. Like I just don't like that. I don't like that at all. How we have to sit there and wait, and they got to figure out, and we got to go through the whole thing again. We got to repeat the same problems. We got to come up with the same solutions. And it'll eventually end up. They'll eventually be amazing projects, no doubt, 100%. There's just the teams behind them are incredibly talented. The games look absolutely amazing. They have very motivated people working on those projects, and they're smart people, but they're just missing like the whole like history the actual history and storied experience of a Milsim gamer over the past 10 years to deliver what I think the crowd from then wants now. And so that was when I thought back and I was like, who will make this game? Who could make this game? No big AAA studios coming in. No, all these indie people already have projects. There was the answer was like pretty like I was in a super unique position to have spent literally day and night 24/7 over the past 10 years of my life purely dedicated to creating the most authentic military gaming experiences possible.
Yeah.
I was like, if I have to make this, like no one else is going to be able, no one else is literally like going to be able to take all the information in my brain and put it on paper and actually make the thing. It's just not going to happen. There's no experienced designer, I think, that could do that is not attached to a team in a position to make a game that I can wait for to make that game. It's just not going to happen. So like that was like the crux. That was we passed that point, and it was just like, okay, I guess this is how far gone and how desperate I am to have this experience to the point where we have to make it ourselves. And I think that's just natural. It just happens. It's why we're here. I totally understand everyone's hesitation. I totally get it. I'm literally with you right there. That is why we're doing it. I completely understand the hesitation. It is just so sad when I read the comments because I'm like, oh, damn, like these, what happened, man? What happened to these guys? These guys were so filled with fire. It was like we were on such a trajectory. We were on such an amazing trajectory, and it just kind of fizzled. And it was just like, oh, this can't be the end of it. This can't be the end of it. I love this stuff too much to see it die there, right? Like I just love the whole aspect of the military gaming side of things too much to just like, well, I guess that's it. I guess we just wait like forever? ? Like I guess. That was not. I couldn't do it. So here we are. But yeah, that's a hard part is like seeing how disheartened everyone is in the community, or not everyone, but
that's something
a significant portion.
Yeah, that's something I definitely understand too. Because even like I release a video covering a Bellum devlog. There's always a slew of comments that's like, oh, this is the latest in all the projects that are gonna fail, or that are super cynical. And that was something that I struggled with too. First, it's like I like my channel, I don't cover game development or gaming news. So like, am I going to do this for Bellum? And two, like, I tend to publicly, I have a very positive tone when I'm talking about Bellum. Like, is that something I want to do, or am I going to sound tone deaf while I do that? Right. But like, I guess like for me personally, this is where it goes to me just genuinely, because like everything that you just said, like that's a calculation I did in my head too. Like to me, it makes sense that like if anybody's gonna make the game, it's gonna be this project right here that you're spearheading. So thanks from me and thanks from everybody else that appreciates it as well, that you're going ahead with this, because like you are in a way just diving into the unknown, even with the weight of all your experiences behind you.
Yeah, it's been super because like I don't want only like going on to the positive stuff. Like I've also seen while I have seen the negative side of things, I have seen like all the support from people like yourself or like other people who get it, who understand like why I'm doing what I'm doing, and who understand the position that we're in. And everyone that's hesitant, like I'm completely understand. Like we'll get there. I'm confident that we'll make the thing that you want. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to like that positive part of the question that you mentioned before. The best thing is like it is like Christmas. I wake up every morning like super excited because like it is a new thing almost every time we get together and we're working on the project. There's always progress. It is like from a creator, when I used to be a young creator, like getting early access to stuff and seeing things early and like Hell Let Loose or like Squad is like, oh my god, this is so interesting. Oh my god, the new stuff is here, right? I get to live that like almost every day now, which is super cool. It's awesome to work with super motivated and passionate people. We have like super spirited discussions about certain design things, and you can tell people like really freaking care about how certain things look, how certain things feel, how certain things are designed within the team. So that I'm super grateful for that. And also just like being able to I feel like super satisfied, vindicated. I don't know whatever. I feel super gratified that I'm able to put all these ideas in my head, all these things I want down on paper, and people resonate with them. I guess is what I'm saying. Is that like all my experience in the past that was, quote unquote useless, just playing video games, right? I'm able to leverage that, and people like truly believe in the ideas that are coming out, and that this is of value to people. What I'm doing is of value to people, and that people are super supportive. Like that is probably the highlight of what we're doing is because otherwise, like if I didn't make this project, like I have all this information and experience from past shooters, but I don't really ever get to, I don't know anywhere in the world or any job anywhere else that would allow me to leverage such things. So it is super gratifying to be able to do that, and it's I just feel great with how people understand what we're trying to do.
Cool. All right.